My name is Serena, and I'm 29 years old. Working as an art conservator has been my passion, but 3 years ago, my entire world shattered when my own parents abandoned me in Paris. They left a note saying it was punishment for turning my back on family because I refused to lend my brother $100,000. The pain was unbearable. Today, I have a beautiful life with my wife Amanda and our son Noah. Before I reveal what happened in Paris, let me know where you're watching from and hit that subscribe button if you've ever had to stand up to family pressure. Growing up as the oldest child in an upper-middle-class American family, I always felt the weight of my parents' expectations. My father Martin was a successful investment banker, and my mother Diana managed our family's social calendar with precision. They provided us with comfortable lives in our suburban Connecticut home, complete with private school educations and summer vacations to impressive destinations. But from early childhood, I noticed something that would define our family dynamics forever. My younger brother Jackson was clearly the favorite. 3 years my junior, Jackson received the lion's share of attention, praise, and resources. When he wanted the latest video game console, it appeared under the Christmas tree. When I needed new art supplies for a school project, I was told to be frugal and make do. Boys need more encouragement, my mother would say whenever I questioned the disparity. Besides, Serena, you've always been so independent. That independence wasn't a choice, but a necessity. By 14, I was working summer jobs to pay for my own clothes and school supplies. By 16, I was mapping out college applications with minimal guidance from my parents, who were busy attending Jackson's football games and celebrating his mediocre grades as if they were academic achievements. Despite the lack of support, I excelled academically. Art history became my refuge. The stories of forgotten artists and overlooked masterpieces resonating with my own experience of feeling unseen. When acceptance letters arrived from several prestigious universities, my parents acknowledged my success with polite congratulations before immediately shifting the conversation to Jackson's college prospects, even though he was still a sophomore in high school. I chose Northwestern University, partly for its excellent art history program, and partly because the substantial scholarship they offered meant I wouldn't need to rely on my parents financially. The distance from Connecticut provided breathing room from the suffocating family dynamics. College was transformative. For the first time, I found myself surrounded by people who valued intellectual curiosity and artistic passion. I thrived in my classes, secured competitive internships at museums, and began building a vision for my future in art conservation. The meticulous work of preserving artwork spoke to something deep inside me, the desire to protect what was valuable and ensure its survival. It was during my junior year internship at the Art Institute of Chicago that I met Amanda. She was completing her master's degree in museum studies, and we were assigned to the same cataloging project for a new exhibition. Amanda had a quiet confidence and warmth that drew me in immediately. Where my family had always made me feel like I was too much, too serious, too focused, Amanda made me feel like I was exactly right. Our relationship progressed naturally from coffee breaks discussing Renaissance painters to weekend dates exploring Chicago's cultural landmarks. By graduation, we were planning our futures together. Amanda accepted a position at a small but prestigious museum in New York, and I followed her there for graduate studies in art conservation. While I was building my career and relationship, Jackson's post-college trajectory took a different path. He graduated from a state school with middling grades and immediately launched into a series of entrepreneurial ventures, each more poorly conceived than the last. There was the food delivery app specifically for college athletes that lasted 6 months before folding. Then came the luxury dog accessories brand that never made it past the prototype phase. Each failure was cushioned by our parents' financial support. "Your brother is finding himself," my father would explain when I expressed concern. "He's a visionary, and visionaries often face setbacks before their big breakthrough." What they called vision, I recognized as poor planning and entitlement. Each time a business failed, Jackson would retreat to our parents' home for months of so-called strategic planning that looked suspiciously like playing video games and going out with friends while our parents covered his expenses. Amanda and I built our life in New York methodically. We saved for a small but charming apartment in Brooklyn. We advanced in our careers through hard work and strategic choices. When I proposed to Amanda on the rooftop of our building under a string of lights with the Manhattan skyline as our backdrop, it felt like the culmination of years of deliberately choosing love and stability. We invited my parents and Jackson to our engagement dinner at a restaurant we could barely afford. Their reaction was tepid at best. "Are you sure you're ready for this commitment?" my mother asked, her smile tight. "You're both so focused on your careers." Jackson spent most of the evening texting and occasionally making comments about how marriage was an outdated institution. My father gave an awkward toast that focused more on hoping we'd find financial security than celebrating our love. The wedding was small but meaningful, with Amanda's warmly supportive family making up for my family's mechanical participation. My parents contributed a check that was exactly 1/3 the amount they had once given Jackson for his failed restaurant concept. We accepted it graciously and used it to help furnish our apartment. The first major confrontation came at a Thanksgiving dinner the year after our wedding. Jackson was describing his newest business idea, a social media platform exclusively for influencers, when I gently pointed out some potential flaws in the concept. "Do you have any market research on the demand for this?" I asked. "It seems like there might be a limited audience." The table fell silent. My mother's face hardened. My father cleared his throat awkwardly. "Not everyone needs to overanalyze everything, Serena," Jackson snapped. "Some of us understand how innovation works." That night ended with tense goodbyes and my parents pulling me aside to remind me that family should support each other unconditionally. What they meant, of course, was that I should support Jackson unconditionally. The expectation had never flowed in the other direction. Despite these tensions, Amanda and I maintained holiday visits and occasional family gatherings. We were building a life based on mutual respect and support, and I held on to hope that my family might eventually recognize the value in our approach. Then came the family reunion in New York that would set everything in motion. My parents suggested meeting at an upscale restaurant in Manhattan to celebrate Jackson's birthday. Amanda and I arrived to find my brother dressed in an expensive new suit, practically bouncing with excitement. "I've got big news," he announced before we'd even received our drinks. "I'm launching a new business, and this one's going to change everything." As the evening progressed, I should have recognized the familiar pattern forming. I should have seen the trap being set. But despite everything, I still wanted to believe in the possibility of genuine family connection. That misplaced hope would soon lead to the most painful experience of my life. The restaurant my parents had chosen for Jackson's birthday celebration was exactly his style, expensive and trendy with minimal substance. The cocktails cost $20 each, and the portions were artistic rather than filling. As we settled into our seats, I could sense an unusual energy around the table. My parents exchanged meaningful glances, and Jackson couldn't stop smiling. "So, what's this big news?" I asked after we'd ordered our first round of drinks. Jackson leaned forward, his eyes gleaming with excitement. "I'm launching a luxury travel app. It's going to revolutionize how wealthy travelers experience cities around the world." He pulled out his phone and began swiping through mock-ups of an app interface. "It's called Exclusive Escape. The app connects high-net-worth individuals with unique ultra-luxury experiences that aren't available to the general public. Private museum tours, after-hours dinners prepared by Michelin-starred chefs in historical locations, exclusive access to events, you name it." My father beamed with pride. "Your brother has really done his homework this time, Serena. He's identified a genuine gap in the market. The target demographic has an average annual income of over $3 million. Jackson continued, not noticing my skeptical expression. "These people don't care about price. They care about exclusivity and bragging rights." "Sounds interesting," I said carefully. "Have you secured partnerships with these luxury venues and services yet?" Jackson waved his hand dismissively. "That's phase 2. First, we need to build the platform and create the brand identity. I've already talked to some developers and they've given me a quote for the initial build." "How much is the startup cost?" Amanda asked, always practical. Jackson took a deep breath, and I immediately sensed what was coming. "Well, that's actually why I wanted us all to get together tonight. I need about $200,000 for the initial development and marketing." My parents nodded as if this were perfectly reasonable. My father cleared his throat. "Your mother and I are contributing half. We thought, given your stable financial situation, you might want to invest in your brother's venture." And there it was. the real purpose of our family dinner. "You want me to give you $100,000? I asked, stunned by the casualness of the request. "Not give," Jackson corrected quickly. "Invest. You'd be getting in on the ground floor of something huge. When we secure our Series A funding, early investors could see returns of 10 times their initial investment or more." I took a slow sip of water, gathering my thoughts. Amanda's hand found mine under the table, a silent gesture of support. "Jackson, I'd like to see your business plan," I said finally. "The market analysis, revenue projections, competitive landscape assessment. Before investing that kind of money, I'd need to understand the details." My brother's confident smile faltered. "I can send you some materials, but honestly, this is about moving quickly. There's a first mover advantage here." "I've looked at his research," my father interjected. "It's solid. This isn't like his previous ventures. He's matured." I took a deep breath. "Dad, I work hard for my money. Amanda and I have been saving for years. We're planning to start fertility treatments soon." I turned to my brother. "I can't just hand over $100,000 without proper due diligence." My mother's expression hardened. "Fertility treatments. You two are always so focused on yourselves. Your brother needs family support right now." The conversation quickly deteriorated from there. My parents began listing all the ways they had supposedly supported me throughout my life, conveniently forgetting the scholarships that paid for my education and the jobs that funded my living expenses. Jackson accused me of always thinking I was better than him, of never believing in his potential. "Family means being there for each other," my father insisted, his voice rising. "Your brother would do this for you." "Would he?" I challenged. "Because I don't recall him ever being asked to make sacrifices for me." Amanda spoke up, her voice calm but firm. "Serena and I have been planning to start our family for 2 years. We've been saving diligently. This money represents our future child's opportunity." My mother's eyes flashed with irritation. "That's still theoretical. Jackson's need is immediate and real." "Our family planning is very real to us," I replied, feeling a surge of anger. "And based on Jackson's track record, I'm not convinced this business will succeed." "That's because you've never believed in me," Jackson snapped. "You've always been jealous that Mom and Dad love me more." The table fell silent. The truth that had always lingered beneath the surface of our family dynamics had finally been spoken aloud. My parents didn't even try to deny it. After a moment, my father spoke, his voice cold. "I think you need to consider what's important to you, Serena. Family should come first. Always." "I agree," I said quietly. "But family should be about mutual support, not one-way sacrifice." "So that's it? You're refusing to help your brother?" my mother asked incredulously. "I'm refusing to invest $100,000 in a business venture without proper due diligence, yes, especially when that money is earmarked for something important to my own family," I explained. My father's face reddened. "Your own family. We are your family. Amanda is my family too," I said firmly. "And hopefully soon our child will be as well." We left the restaurant shortly after with my parents' warning ringing in my ears. "You'll regret your selfishness, Serena. When you turn your back on family, it always comes back to haunt you." I had no idea how prophetic those words would prove to be, though not in the way they intended. On the cab ride home, Amanda held me as I cried with frustration and hurt. "You did the right thing," she whispered. "You stood up for us, for our future." "They've always been like this," I said between tears. "I don't know why I keep hoping for something different." What I couldn't have known then was that my parents and brother weren't simply disappointed by my refusal. They were already plotting their revenge. 2 months after the disastrous dinner, Amanda and I were preparing for our 3rd wedding anniversary. We had been saving for a special trip to Paris, a city we both loved but hadn't visited together. Art history and romance, all wrapped into one perfect destination, it represented everything we valued in our relationship. One evening, I received an unexpected call from my mother. "Serena, darling, your father and I have been thinking about your anniversary trip to Paris." Her tone was unusually warm, catching me off guard. "You remembered we're going to Paris?" "Of course we did. And we want to make amends for that unpleasantness at Jackson's birthday dinner." We'd like to upgrade your accommodations as an anniversary gift. We've reserved a suite at the Hotel de Crillon for you both." I nearly dropped the phone in shock. The Hotel de Crillon was one of the most luxurious hotels in Paris, far beyond what Amanda and I had budgeted for. "Mom, that's incredibly generous, but we couldn't possibly accept such an expensive gift." "Nonsense," she insisted. "It's our way of showing we support your relationship with Amanda. We haven't always been as accepting as we should have been." After discussing it with Amanda, we cautiously accepted. The olive branch seemed genuine, and perhaps my stand at the dinner had finally made them reconsider their treatment of us. The upgraded accommodations would certainly make our anniversary trip even more special. "Maybe they're finally coming around," Amanda said, though I could hear the skepticism in her voice. "I hope so," I replied, wanting desperately to believe it was possible. The first few days in Paris were everything we'd dreamed of. Our suite at the Hotel de Crillon was breathtaking, with views of the Place de la Concorde and elegant furnishings that made us feel like royalty. We visited the Louvre and the Musée d'Orsay, walked along the Seine at sunset, and enjoyed intimate dinners at charming bistros. On our third evening in Paris, I received another surprise call from my mother. "Wonderful news, darling. Your father and I decided to join you in Paris as a surprise. We're at the George V Hotel and would love to take you and Amanda to dinner tonight to celebrate your anniversary properly." Again, I was stunned. My parents had never shown such interest in our relationship before. Amanda looked concerned when I told her, but we agreed that refusing would only create more tension. "Let's see what happens," she said. "We can always leave if things get uncomfortable." Dinner that night was surprisingly pleasant. My parents were charming, asking Amanda questions about her work and seeming genuinely interested in our lives. They ordered expensive champagne and toasted to our happiness. No mention was made of Jackson or his business venture. "We've been doing some reflecting," my father said over dessert. "Perhaps we haven't been as supportive of your relationship as we should have been. Seeing you both so happy together has opened our eyes." The next day, they suggested we tour some museums together. Amanda developed a migraine after lunch, likely from the rich French food and wine. She decided to return to the hotel to rest. "Why don't I take you to a special exhibition I've heard about?" my father offered. "It's a bit off the beaten path, but I think you'd find it fascinating, Serena." My mother added, "It's featuring some early American influences on French Impressionism. Right up your alley." The idea was tempting, and with Amanda encouraging me to go, I accepted. "You two have some father-daughter time," my mother said. "I'll do some shopping, and we can all meet for dinner later." My father drove a rental car, taking us away from the central tourist areas of Paris, into neighborhoods I wasn't familiar with. As the landmarks became less recognizable, a small knot of anxiety formed in my stomach. "Are you sure this is the right way to the exhibition?" I asked as we turned down a narrow street lined with residential buildings. "Just a bit further," he assured me, though I noticed his knuckles were white on the steering wheel. We drove for another 15 minutes, the surroundings becoming increasingly residential and less touristy. Finally, he pulled over on a quiet street lined with apartment buildings. There were no museums or galleries in sight. "Dad, where are we?" I asked, confusion turning to unease. He turned to face me, his expression completely transformed from the warm, reconciliatory father of the past 2 days. "This is where you learn about loyalty, Serena." My mother, who had been silent for most of the drive, spoke from the back seat. "Family means standing together no matter what. You refused to help your brother when he needed you." "What are you talking about?" I asked, genuine fear beginning to rise. "Is this about the money again? I thought we were past that." My father's laugh was cold. "Past it. Your selfishness has consequences. Get out of the car." "What?" "We're miles from the hotel. I don't even know where we are." "Exactly," my mother said. "You turned your back on your family. Now you can see how it feels to be truly alone." With growing horror, I realized what was happening. This wasn't a reconciliation trip. It was a setup for revenge. My father reached across me and opened the passenger door. "Get out, Serena. Consider this a lesson in family values." "You can't be serious," I stammered. "We're in a foreign country. I don't speak French. I don't know this area." "You should have thought of consequences before refusing to help your brother." My mother said, her voice eerily calm. Maybe next time you'll understand that family comes first. When I didn't move, my father took my arm and physically pulled me from the car. I stumbled onto the sidewalk, disoriented and frightened. My mother handed me an envelope through the window. Here's a note to remember us by. Before I could respond, my father accelerated away, leaving me standing alone on an unfamiliar street in a foreign city. With shaking hands, I opened the envelope. Inside was a handwritten note. This is the punishment for turning your back on family. The full reality of my situation crashed down on me as I reached for my purse to call Amanda. My heart stopped when I looked inside. My phone was gone. So was my wallet containing my credit card's cash and ID. My passport and visa were missing too. I frantically searched every pocket, but it was clear that while hugging me goodbye, one of my parents had emptied my purse of everything essential. I was alone in an unfamiliar neighborhood in Paris. No phone, no money, no identification, and no way to communicate in a language I barely understood. The betrayal was so complete, so calculated that my mind struggled to process it. These were my parents, the people who were supposed to love and protect me unconditionally. Panic threatened to overwhelm me as I looked around the residential street. It was late afternoon and there weren't many people around. I approached an elderly woman walking a small dog and tried to explain my situation using the few French phrases I knew. Excusez-moi, s'il vous plaît. Je suis américaine. J'ai besoin d'aide, I said, my voice trembling. She looked at me with suspicion and quickened her pace, pulling her dog along. I couldn't blame her. A distraught foreigner approaching on a residential street would make anyone cautious. I started walking, hoping to find a main street with shops or cafes where I might find help. The reality of what my parents had done kept hitting me in waves. They had planned this meticulously, bringing me to a remote area, stealing my belongings, and abandoning me with no resources. All because I refused to give my brother money that Amanda and I had saved for our future family. After walking for what felt like hours, but was probably only 20 minutes, I found a small cafe. I approached the counter, fighting back tears. "Do you speak English?" I asked the young man behind the counter. He nodded slightly. "A little." "I need help," I explained, my voice breaking. "I was brought here by my parents and they left me. They took my phone, my money, everything. I need to contact my wife at our hotel." He looked confused and suspicious, which I understood. My story sounded far-fetched even to my own ears. "Please," I begged. "I just need to make one phone call." Another customer, a middle-aged woman, approached. She spoke to the young man in rapid French, then turned to me. "I speak English," she said with a heavy accent. "You are in trouble." I nodded, tears finally spilling over. "My parents abandoned me here. They took all my things. I need to call my wife at our hotel." Something in my desperate expression must have convinced her. She invited me to sit at her table and introduced herself as Marie. I explained my situation in more detail, still struggling to believe it myself. "This is horrible," Marie said, genuine concern in her eyes. "Your own parents did this." She offered me her cell phone. With trembling fingers, I dialed Amanda's number, praying she would answer a call from a foreign number. "Hello?" Amanda's voice was tentative. "Amanda, it's me," I said, my voice breaking. "Serena? Whose phone are you using? Where are you?" The relief at hearing her voice mixed with the horror of having to explain what happened. "My parents abandoned me somewhere in Paris. They took everything, my phone, wallet, passport. They left me with nothing." I heard her sharp intake of breath. "Oh my God, are you safe? Are you hurt?" "I'm okay. I'm at a cafe. A woman named Marie let me use her phone." I looked at Marie gratefully. "I don't know where I am, though." Marie gently took the phone from me and explained in French accented English exactly where we were located. She and Amanda worked out a plan for Amanda to take a taxi to the cafe. While we waited, Marie bought me a cup of tea and a sandwich, waving away my promises to repay her. "This is not how visitors should be treated in Paris," she said firmly, "especially not by family." When Amanda arrived 45 minutes later, I broke down completely. She rushed to embrace me, holding me tightly as I sobbed into her shoulder. "They planned this," I choked out between sobs. "The whole reconciliation was fake. They brought me here to abandon me." Amanda's face was a mixture of fury and concern. "We need to get back to the hotel. We'll figure this out." We thanked Marie profusely for her kindness with Amanda, insisting on giving her money for the phone call and food. Back at the hotel, the next shock awaited us. My parents had checked out that morning, informing the front desk that they would be covering the bill for our entire stay. But when Amanda spoke with the manager, we learned they had actually canceled the payment, leaving us responsible for the full amount of the luxury suite they had insisted we accept. "They set us up completely," Amanda said, her voice tight with anger. "The expensive hotel, the reconciliation, all of it was to make the betrayal worse." The nightmare was only beginning. Without my passport, wallet, or identification, I was effectively trapped. We spent the next day at the American Embassy explaining our bizarre situation to skeptical officials. "Your parents deliberately abandoned you without documentation," the consular officer repeated clearly, finding the story hard to believe. "Yes," I confirmed, humiliation burning through me. "They were angry that I wouldn't give my brother money for a business venture." It took hours of paperwork, verification calls, and emergency protocols to begin the process of getting temporary travel documents. Amanda had to drain our savings account to pay for the hotel and book new flights home, as my parents had somehow also managed to cancel our return tickets. That night in the hotel room, the emotional impact hit me fully. These weren't strangers who had done this to me. These were the people who had brought me into the world, who were supposed to love me unconditionally. "What kind of parents would do something like this?" I whispered as Amanda held me. "What kind of people?" "Not people who deserve to be in your life," Amanda answered firmly. "Not people worthy of being called parents." The nightmare continued for several more days as we navigated the bureaucratic challenges of my situation. We had to extend our hotel stay while waiting for emergency documentation, draining even more of our savings. Amanda contacted her parents, who immediately wired us additional funds to help their concern and support, in stark contrast to my own family's cruelty. When we finally boarded our flight back to New York, I felt hollow. The Paris trip that was supposed to be a romantic celebration of our love had become a traumatic ordeal that would leave lasting scars. As the plane took off, I made a silent vow to myself. Whatever twisted definition of family my parents lived by, I would never allow that toxicity into my life again. The process of rebuilding my life after Paris was both challenging and illuminating. Back in New York, I discovered my parents had blocked my number and email addresses. They had also blocked me on all social media platforms. It was as if they had conducted a complete excision of me from their lives following their cruel abandonment. The first task was replacing all my stolen identification, credit cards, and documents. Each visit to a government office or bank required explaining what had happened, often met with disbelief. How could I possibly convey the calculated cruelty of what my own parents had done without sounding unhinged? "They left you in Paris without identification or money," the bank representative asked, his eyes widening. "And they're your parents." I simply nodded, too emotionally exhausted to elaborate. Amanda was my rock through all of this. She took time off work to accompany me to appointments, fielded concerned calls from friends, and held me through the nightmares that began plaguing my sleep. In my dreams, I was constantly being abandoned, left alone in unfamiliar places with no way home. "I've got you," she would whisper when I woke, gasping for air. "You're safe. I'm not going anywhere." One of the hardest tasks was explaining to friends and extended family what had happened. Most people couldn't comprehend the level of betrayal. Some suggested there must have been a misunderstanding, that perhaps my parents hadn't meant to leave me so completely stranded. "There's no misunderstanding possible," I would explain wearily. "They drove me to an unfamiliar neighborhood, physically removed me from the car, handed me a note explicitly stating it was punishment, and had already stolen my identification, money, and phone. It was premeditated and deliberate." My father's sister, Aunt Judith, was one of the few family members who seemed to truly understand. "I wish I could say I'm surprised," she said during a phone call after hearing the news. "My brother has always enabled Jackson to an unhealthy degree, but this crosses every boundary of decency." Aunt Judith tried contacting my parents on my behalf, but reported back that they were unrepentant. "They believe they taught you a necessary lesson about family loyalty," she told me, disgust evident in her voice. "I told them the only lesson they taught was about their own capacity for cruelty." Amanda suggested I seek therapy, recognizing the profound trauma I'd experienced. Initially, I resisted, still conditioned by my upbringing to see asking for help as weakness. But as the weeks passed and my anxiety intensified, I finally made an appointment with a therapist specializing in family trauma. Dr. Lydia Rosenberg had a warm office in a brownstone building near our apartment. During our first session, she listened without judgment as I recounted the Paris incident and the years of favoritism and emotional manipulation that had preceded it. "What you experienced wasn't just a family disagreement," she explained gently. "It was a profound betrayal of the parent-child bond and a form of psychological abuse. Your feelings of shock, grief, and anger are entirely appropriate responses." Over the following months, my weekly sessions with Dr. Rosenberg became crucial to my healing process. She helped me understand that the dynamics in my family had never been healthy, that the extreme favoritism shown to Jackson had been damaging to both of us in different ways, and that my parents' behavior reflected their own pathology, not any failure on my part. "You established a healthy boundary by refusing to give your brother money that you and Amanda had saved for your future," she assured me. "Healthy families respect boundaries. They don't punish members for having them." One particularly difficult aspect of recovery was dealing with mutual friends and acquaintances who still had contact with my parents and brother. Occasionally, information would filter back to me, usually through well-meaning but misguided attempts to facilitate reconciliation. "Your mom asked about you at the charity gala," an old family friend informed me during a chance meeting. "Maybe they're regretting what happened. Perhaps you should reach out." "Did she mention abandoning me in Paris without identification or money?" I asked quietly. The friend's uncomfortable silence was answer enough. Amanda and I made the difficult decision to cancel our fertility treatments temporarily. The financial setback from the Paris ordeal, combined with my emotional state, meant it wasn't the right time to bring a child into our lives. This delay was another painful consequence of my parents' actions, another future joy they had managed to taint. "We'll get back on track," Amanda promised as we sat down with our revised budget and timeline. "This is a delay, not a cancellation. Our family will happen." 6 months after Paris, we received a certified letter from a lawyer representing my parents. It contained a formal warning that any public discussion of the Paris disagreement would be considered defamation and met with legal action. There was no apology, no acknowledgement of the harm they had caused, only a threat. Dr. Rosenberg helped me see this for what it was, another attempt to control and silence me. "They're afraid of their actions being exposed," she explained. "This letter reveals their fear, not their power." We consulted our own lawyer, who assured us that truthfully recounting our experience was not defamation. Nevertheless, I had no desire to engage in a legal battle with my parents. I wasn't interested in public exposure or revenge, only in healing and moving forward. The hardest decision came when Amanda's parents invited us to their anniversary celebration in Chicago. They had always been kind and supportive, the very model of what parents should be, but attending meant potentially facing questions about my own family's absence, explaining yet again what had happened. "We don't have to go," Amanda offered, always protective of my feelings. "No," I said firmly. "I won't let them take one more good thing from us. Your parents deserve to celebrate with their daughter present." That trip to Chicago became unexpectedly healing. Surrounded by Amanda's warm, functional family, I began to reimagine what family could mean. It wasn't necessarily about blood ties, but about choice, respect, and genuine care for one another's well-being. Amanda's father pulled me aside during the celebration. "I want you to know something, Serena," he said, his voice gruff with emotion. "You're our daughter too. What happened to you in Paris, that's not what parents do. Not ever." His simple validation brought tears to my eyes. In that moment, I felt something inside me shift. I could build a new understanding of family, one based on love, rather than obligation and fear. As our first anniversary of the Paris incident approached, Amanda suggested we needed to reclaim the city from the traumatic memories. "Not right away," she clarified. "But someday we'll go back on our terms. We won't let them take Paris from us forever." I nodded, recognizing the wisdom in her words. Slowly but steadily, We were taking back what had been stolen piece by piece, rebuilding our life and our future plans. 1 year after Paris, we revisited the decision about starting our family. We had replenished our savings, and I felt emotionally stronger. In my therapy sessions, I had worked through fears about my capacity to parent given my own traumatic experiences. The fact that you're so concerned about being a good parent already tells me you will be, Dr. Rosenberg assured me. You've done the work to understand healthy family dynamics. You'll break the cycle. With renewed hope, Amanda and I restarted the fertility process, looking forward to building the family we had always dreamed of, one founded on mutual respect and unconditional love. The kind of family I had never known growing up, but was now ready to create. The day we received confirmation that our fertility treatment had been successful remains one of the brightest moments of my life. Amanda and I were having breakfast in our apartment when the call came from the clinic. "Congratulations," the nurse said warmly. "Your HCG levels are excellent. You're officially pregnant." Amanda watched my face as I listened, her eyes searching for clues. When I hung up, I couldn't speak through my tears of joy. I simply nodded, and she flew across the kitchen into my arms. We stood there holding each other, both crying and laughing, the weight of everything we'd endured to reach this moment, making it all the more precious. "We're having a baby," I finally managed to whisper. The pregnancy journey became a powerful healing experience. Each milestone, from the first ultrasound to feeling our baby's kicks, reinforced that we were creating something beautiful and new. Amanda was extraordinarily attentive, attending every appointment, researching prenatal nutrition, and talking to my growing belly each night before we fell asleep. "Hello, little one," she would say, her voice soft and full of wonder. "Your moms love you so much already." As my body changed and our baby grew, I found myself reflecting on the meaning of family. Dr. Rosenberg encouraged this exploration in our sessions, helping me separate my fears from my hopes. "I keep wondering if I'll somehow mess this up," I confessed during my second trimester. "What if there's something broken in me because of how I was raised?" "Awareness is the first step in breaking cycles," she reminded me. "The fact that you're asking these questions, that you're conscious of the patterns you don't want to repeat, that's already creating a different path for your child." We decided not to find out the baby's sex, wanting to preserve one surprise in our meticulously planned journey to parenthood. Instead, we focused on preparing our apartment, converting our small guest room into a nursery painted in gentle greens and yellows. Amanda's parents sent handmade curtains and a rocking chair that had been in their family for generations. "This is where I rocked Amanda when she was colicky," her mother explained when they delivered it. "There's magic in this chair. It's never failed to soothe a crying baby." The contrast between their excited anticipation of grandparenthood and my own parents' complete absence was sometimes painful. Although I had largely accepted the necessity of cutting ties with my family of origin, pregnancy stirred up complicated emotions about belonging and continuity. "It's okay to grieve what should have been," Dr. Rosenberg assured me. "The parents you deserved but didn't have, the grandparents your child won't know, that grief can exist alongside your joy." Through mutual acquaintances, occasional news about my birth family filtered through. Jackson's luxury travel app had failed within 8 months, just as I had predicted. According to a former colleague who encountered my mother at a charity event, my parents had invested heavily in the venture and lost a substantial amount. "She didn't mention you," my colleague reported hesitantly, "but she seemed stressed about money. Apparently your brother has moved back home again." I absorbed this information with a complex mix of vindication and sadness. There was no satisfaction in knowing my assessment of Jackson's business plan had been correct, only confirmation that the dysfunctional patterns continued in my absence. In my 7th month, Amanda organized a baby shower with our closest friends and her family. The outpouring of love and support was overwhelming. People traveled from across the country to celebrate with us, bringing thoughtful gifts and sharing in our excitement. Amanda's father gave a toast that brought me to tears. "Family isn't just about blood," he said, raising his glass of sparkling cider in deference to my pregnancy. "It's about who shows up, who stands by you, who loves you without conditions. We're so proud of the family you two are building." Later that evening, as Amanda and I sorted through the mountain of baby clothes and supplies, she noticed my quietness. "Penny for your thoughts?" she asked, folding a tiny onesie with careful precision. "I was just thinking about how different this feels from my childhood," I explained. "All these people who genuinely care about our baby, who want to be part of his or her life. It feels like we're creating something so much healthier than what I grew up with." Amanda squeezed my hand. "We are. Our child will never question if they're loved or valued. They'll know with absolute certainty." The birth of our son Noah James arrived after 36 hours of labor. The moment they placed his tiny squirming body on my chest, I felt a rush of love so powerful it took my breath away. He had a shock of dark hair and Amanda's cleft chin. His eyes, when they briefly opened, were the deep blue of all newborns, but would later settle into a warm brown like mine. "He's perfect," Amanda whispered. Her finger caught in Noah's surprisingly strong grip. "Absolutely perfect." Those first weeks of parenthood were a blur of exhaustion and exhilaration. Noah was a good baby overall, but had his challenging moments, particularly during the nighttime hours, when he seemed determined to test the limits of his lungs. The magic rocking chair proved its worth, as did Amanda's endless patience during late-night feedings. We quickly established our own family traditions and rhythms. Sunday morning pancakes with Noah nestled in his bouncy chair, watching our cooking dance. Daily walks in the park where Amanda would point out birds and flowers to our attentive infant. Bath time rituals that evolved from quick practical affairs to extended play sessions as Noah discovered the joy of splashing. Amanda's parents visited regularly, delighting in their role as grandparents. They brought thoughtfully chosen books and toys offered to babysit so we could have occasional date nights and filled our home with the easy comfort of unconditional love. "This is what family should feel like," I remarked to Amanda after her parents had left following a weekend visit. "No walking on eggshells, no hidden agendas, just genuine connection." As Noah grew from newborn to infant to increasingly mobile baby, our lives expanded to accommodate his developing personality. He was curious and determined with a belly laugh that could melt the coldest heart. Watching him discover the world, I felt the last lingering shadows of my Paris trauma receding. It was through a social media post by a distant cousin that I learned my parents were experiencing financial difficulties. Apparently, after multiple bailouts of Jackson's failed businesses, they had been forced to downsize from their longtime home to a much more modest condo. Jackson, now 30, was still living with them, allegedly working on yet another entrepreneurial concept. "Do you want to reach out?" Amanda asked when I shared this news. I considered the question carefully. "No," I finally answered. "They haven't attempted to contact me, haven't apologized, haven't shown any recognition of how wrong their actions were. I won't expose Noah to people capable of such cruelty." She nodded, respecting my decision. "I support whatever you think is best. Just know that your feelings might change over time, and that's okay too." As Noah approached his first birthday, we planned a small celebration with close friends and Amanda's parents. The theme was Our Little Explorer, complete with a map-themed cake and tiny globes as decorations. Noah had recently taken his first unsteady steps, making the Explorer theme particularly appropriate for our adventurous little boy. The day before the party, I was putting finishing touches on the decorations while Amanda played with Noah on the living room floor. The buzzer for our building's front door sounded an unexpected interruption. "Are we expecting a package?" I called to Amanda. She shook her head, rising to check the intercom. "Hello," she said into the speaker. There was a pause. Then a voice I hadn't heard in 3 years responded. "It's Diana and Martin, Serena's parents. We'd like to come up and talk." The sound of my mother's voice sent a physical shock through my system. Amanda looked at me, her face asking the question she didn't need to voice. I stood frozen, a paper globe decoration dangling from my suddenly nerveless fingers. After a moment, I nodded slowly. "Let them up," I said, my voice barely audible. "I want to hear what they have to say." As Amanda buzzed them in, I moved to pick up Noah, an instinctive protective gesture. By the time the knock came at our door, I was standing with my son in my arms, my heart pounding so hard I was sure Noah could feel it against his small body. Amanda opened the door, positioning herself slightly in front of us like a shield. And there they were. my parents looking older and somewhat diminished from the confident figures who had abandoned me in Paris 3 years earlier. "Hello, Serena," my mother said, her eyes immediately fixing on Noah. "Is this our grandson?" The presumption in her question, the immediate claim to Noah, sent a surge of anger through me. "Why are you here?" I asked, my voice steadier than I expected. They exchanged a glance before my father spoke. "We thought it was time to mend fences. Family should stick together." The irony of his words after what they had done was almost too much to bear. Amanda must have sensed my tension because she stepped forward. "Perhaps we should all sit down," she suggested, her tone professional but cool. "Noah needs his lunch and nap soon, so we don't have much time." We moved to the living room, an awkward procession. I sat with Noah on my lap, Amanda beside us on the couch. My parents took the chairs opposite, their eyes repeatedly drawn to Noah, who regarded these strangers with open curiosity. "He looks like you did as a baby," my mother offered, a tentative smile on her face. "What do you want?" I asked again, unwilling to engage in superficial pleasantries. My father cleared his throat. "As your mother said, we think it's time to put the past behind us. We've had some difficult years, and it's made us realize the importance of family." "Difficult years?" I repeated incredulously. "You abandoned me in a foreign country without money or identification. You left me with nothing but a cruel note. And now you want to put the past behind us." "We may have overreacted," my mother conceded, though her tone suggested minimal remorse. "But you hurt your brother deeply by refusing to support his business venture." "Jackson's business failed anyway," I pointed out, "just like I predicted it would." "That's beside the point," my father insisted. "Family supports each other unconditionally." Noah began to fuss, perhaps sensing the tension in the room. I bounced him gently on my knee, trying to soothe him while maintaining my composure. "Why now?" Amanda asked, her voice level but with an underlying steel. "It's been 3 years. Why come looking for Serena now?" My parents exchanged another look, and in that moment I knew this wasn't about reconciliation. It was about something else entirely. "We heard you had a child," my mother said. "We have a right to know our grandson." "A right?" I repeated, the word hanging in the air between us. My father nodded. "Grandparents have rights too. We've consulted an attorney about visitation." The naked manipulation left me speechless. They weren't here to apologize or make amends. They were here to assert a claim on my son. "Is Jackson with you in New York?" Amanda asked suddenly. My mother looked startled by the change of subject. "Yes, he's staying with us. He's between opportunities at the moment." "And does he need money for his next opportunity?" Amanda pressed. My father's face hardened. "Our family financial matters are private." But the truth was written clearly in their defensive postures. This wasn't about Noah at all. This was about access to me and potentially to my finances for Jackson's next scheme. "I think you should leave," I said quietly. "Serena, be reasonable," my mother pleaded. "Noah deserves to know his grandparents and his uncle." Amanda stood up, then her patience visibly exhausted. "Noah deserves to be surrounded by people who know the meaning of love and respect, people who would never abandon his mother in a foreign city as punishment for setting a healthy boundary." "This isn't just about what happened in Paris," my father began, but Amanda cut him off. "Actually, it is," she said firmly. "It's about who you revealed yourselves to be through that action. People capable of such calculated cruelty have no place in our son's life." My mother's expression hardened. "We have legal rights. You can't keep our grandson from us." "Watch us," Amanda replied, moving toward the door. "Please leave now or we'll call building security." They rose slowly, clearly not having expected this outcome. My mother approached me, reaching toward Noah, who shrank back against me. "Don't," I warned, my voice low. She withdrew her hand but leaned in closer. "This isn't over, Serena. Family is family whether you like it or not." After they left, I collapsed on the couch, still clutching Noah, who had begun to cry in earnest. Amanda sat beside us, wrapping her arms around both of us. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry they came here like that." "Do you think they could really have some legal claim to see Noah?" I asked, genuine fear rising at the thought. No, Amanda said firmly. But first thing Monday, we're calling a family lawyer to make absolutely certain. That night, after Noah was finally asleep, Amanda and I sat at our kitchen table, researching grandparent visitation rights in New York. The laws were complex, but most cases required a pre-existing relationship or extraordinary circumstances. Given that my parents had never met Noah before and had abandoned their own daughter, we felt cautiously optimistic about our legal position. We'll protect him, Amanda promised, taking my hand across the table. They won't do to Noah what they did to you. Noah's birthday celebration the next day was joyful, despite the shadow of my parents' visit. As I watched our son smashing cake into his face while our friends laughed and took photos, I felt a profound gratitude for the family we had created. Later that week, we consulted with a family law attorney who confirmed our assessment. Based on the circumstances you've described, including the abandonment incident, which was essentially an act of cruelty, they would have an extraordinarily difficult time making a case for visitation rights, she assured us. Still, we took the precaution of documenting everything, creating a file that included the police report from Paris, correspondence with the embassy, and statements from witnesses like Marie, who had helped me after being abandoned. It was painful to revisit these memories, but the need to protect Noah outweighed my discomfort. To our relief, my parents did not follow through on their threat of legal action. Whether deterred by legal advice about their slim chances or distracted by some new drama involving Jackson, they made no further attempts to contact us. In the months that followed, I wrote a letter to my parents that I never mailed. In it, I expressed everything I had never been able to say directly about the pain of their favoritism, the trauma of their abandonment, and my determination to create a different kind of family for my son. Noah will never know what it feels like to be measured against a sibling and found wanting, I wrote. He will never be punished for setting healthy boundaries or standing up for himself. He will be loved completely and unconditionally, not for what he can provide or how he can serve others' needs, but simply for who he is. I sealed the letter and put it away in a drawer. It wasn't for them, I realized. It was for me, a final release of the past and an affirmation of the future I was building. The 3 years that have passed since my parents abandoned me in Paris have been a journey of both healing and discovery. What began as a traumatic betrayal became unexpectedly the catalyst for building a life of genuine love and authenticity. Looking back now, with Noah turning 3 and our family thriving, I can see how completely that painful chapter transformed my understanding of what family truly means. When I first returned from Paris, broken and bewildered by my parents' cruelty, I could never have imagined the sense of peace I feel today. The initial months were undeniably difficult. Nightmares haunted my sleep. Anxiety shadowed my days, and the fundamental questions kept circling in my mind. How could they do this? What kind of parents abandon their child in a foreign country as punishment? Therapy became my lifeline. Dr. Rosenberg helped me see that my parents' actions reflected their own dysfunction, not my worth. You didn't deserve what happened to you, she would remind me in our sessions. No child deserves conditional love from their parents. Gradually, the raw wounds began to heal. I learned to recognize the unhealthy patterns I had internalized from my upbringing, the tendency to doubt my own perceptions, to minimize my needs, to believe I had to earn love through constant sacrifice. Breaking these patterns required conscious effort and tremendous support from Amanda and our circle of friends. "You matter," became Amanda's gentle refrain whenever she caught me slipping into old habits of self-negation. "Your feelings are valid. Your boundaries are important." Building our family with Noah brought these lessons into sharper focus. Each day of parenting presented opportunities to choose differently than my parents had, to respond with patience instead of irritation, to prioritize connection over control, to celebrate Noah's uniqueness rather than trying to mold him into some predetermined ideal. When Noah knocked over my favorite vase while racing his toy cars through the living room, I felt a flash of anger that quickly dissolved at the sight of his distressed face. Instead of the harsh criticism my parents would have delivered, I took a deep breath. "Accidents happen," I told him, kneeling to his level. "Let's clean this up together and find a safer place for your racing track." The relief and love in his eyes in that moment taught me more about parenting than any book or theory could. Children need to know they are valued above objects, that mistakes don't diminish their worth, that love isn't withdrawn when they fail to meet expectations. Amanda's parents continued to be wonderful examples of healthy family dynamics. Their unconditional support and genuine delight in Noah showed me what grandparenting should look like. They never criticized our parenting choices or imposed their own agenda. Instead, they offered help when needed and respected our boundaries without question. "We're here to support, not to take over," Amanda's mother explained once when I thanked her for respecting our parenting decisions. That's what family does, provides a safety net without strings attached. Noah blossomed in this environment of consistent love and respect. He grew into a curious, confident toddler with Amanda's analytical mind and my artistic sensibilities. Watching him explore the world with trust and enthusiasm healed something fundamental inside me, rewriting my understanding of what childhood could be. We've created our own traditions distinct from either of our families of origin. Sunday morning pancake breakfasts, where Noah helps mix the batter, making handprint art for our walls, each birthday summer picnics in the park with our chosen family of close friends. These rituals anchor us, providing the stability and connection that all families need. Last month, we received news that my father had suffered a minor heart attack. The information came through my Aunt Judith, who has maintained cautious contact over the years. She reported that he was recovering well, but that the experience had been sobering for the family. "Your mother asked if you and Noah might visit," Aunt Judith added hesitantly. I told her I would pass along the message, but made no promises. I considered the request carefully, discussing it with Amanda and Dr. Rosenberg. There was a time when such news might have sent me spiraling into guilt and obligation. Now I could evaluate it with clarity and compassion, both for myself and for my parents. "What do you want to do?" Amanda asked, making it clear the decision was mine to make. After reflection, I wrote a brief note to my parents acknowledging the news of my father's health scare and wishing him a good recovery. I did not offer a visit or include a photo of Noah, nor did I share our new address or phone number. It was a humane response without opening the door to renewed manipulation. "I'm proud of you," Amanda said when I showed her the note. "It shows tremendous growth that you can extend basic kindness without compromising your boundaries." The truth is, my parents have never acknowledged the harm they caused, never offered a genuine apology, never demonstrated changed behavior. Without those elements, reconciliation would be a hollow performance that could potentially expose Noah to the same toxic dynamics I grew up with. My responsibility as his mother outweighs any lingering sense of filial obligation. Family, I've learned, is not defined by DNA, but by behavior, by consistent acts of love and respect. It's created through daily choices to support each other's growth, to listen with empathy, to show up reliably in times of need. Amanda and Noah are my true family, along with Amanda's parents and the close friends who stood by us through everything. This understanding brings an unexpected freedom. I'm no longer waiting for the approval or love my parents could never genuinely provide. Instead, I'm channeling my energy into being the parent Noah deserves and the partner Amanda chose. Our home is filled with laughter, honest communication, and the kind of unconditional love I once thought existed only in fairy tales. Last week, Noah asked about my parents for the first time. "Mama, where's your mommy and daddy?" he inquired after spending the day with Amanda's parents. I had prepared for this question, knowing it would eventually arise. Kneeling to meet his eyes, I gave him the simplest version of the truth appropriate for his age. "My mommy and daddy live far away," I explained. "They don't know how to be kind and loving in the way that people in families should be. But you have so many people who love you very much, including Grandma Joan and Grandpa Tom and all our special friends." He considered this for a moment, his small brow furrowed in concentration. "That's sad for them," he finally declared with the innocent wisdom of children. "They're missing all the fun." Out of the mouths of babes comes the purest truth. My parents are indeed missing all the fun of knowing their remarkable grandson, of being part of our joyful, loving family. The loss is entirely theirs. The journey from abandonment to this place of peace wasn't linear or simple. There were setbacks, moments of doubt, occasional anger that needed processing. But step by step, choice by choice, I rebuilt my sense of worth and created a vision of family based on genuine love rather than obligation and fear. If you're watching this and struggling with toxic family relationships, please know that healing is possible. You deserve to be treated with respect and kindness, especially by those who claim to love you. Sometimes the most loving choice for yourself and your children is to establish firm boundaries, even when that means limiting or ending contact with people who cannot honor your humanity. Family should be a source of safety, not fear, of acceptance, not conditional approval, of support, not exploitation. You have the right to create those conditions in your life, even when doing so requires difficult choices and painful separations. Today, I stand in the light of a truth. I had to learn the hardest way: true family is built on love, respect, and consistent care. Those qualities may come from the people who share your DNA, or they may come from those you choose to let into your heart. Either way, you deserve nothing less. Have you ever had to make difficult decisions about family relationships to protect yourself or your children? What helped you find the strength to set necessary boundaries? Share your experiences in the comments below, and please subscribe if this story resonated with you. Your story matters too, and together we can support each other in creating the families we all deserve.